Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday Eve. For those of you that know me, you know I love to designate Thursday as Friday Eve. So it is wonderful that you are here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy and very hectic schedules to be with me today to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Appreciation, I think, is something that is extremely valuable to ourselves as colleagues and as a community. And so I'm excited to share this information with you. And I'm excited that you chose to be here with me today. So, again, thank you so much for your presence. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and get started, but to kind of go over a couple of housekeeping items for you, just so that you can understand what's happening today. This is actually being supported technology wise through the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. So, I just want to say thank you to ODI for being on this webinar and agreeing to host it via Zoom for us, but they are also making it available on the ODI YouTube channel and are live streaming it there, as well as recording this session on YouTube. So for those of us who weren't able to join us today, and for those that have different schedules and not able to be here, they will be able to access this information at a later time. So if you know of colleagues who were wanting to be a part of this experience but couldn't be here, please let them know that they can go to the YouTube link and be able to access it starting today, right now, literally until indefinitely, as what I've been instructed by ODI. So again, that is available for people to access in multiple modalities. And I also wanted to thank ODI for providing captioning services for this presentation today. Thank you so much, Jada, for being here. Jada is our captionist that's going to be making sure that everyone can actually access the information that will be shared today. So thank you so much, Jada, for being here. This presentation is actually slated to be roughly about an hour and a half, but don't worry, I'm not going to be talking the full hour and a half. I've tried to build in some time for a little bit of discussion, a little bit of a Q&A toward the end of this session so we can kind of talk through the information that has been shared and will be shared with you today. But it is about an hour and a half, and you will be able to receive DEU credit as a part of this presentation. Instructions were given out through a campus news email that was sent out earlier in the week from ODI, indicating that you would just need to put in your information on the DEU website to make sure that you can get credit for today's session, because I understand the importance of getting your DEU credits. So you will be able to get access to that. And so with that being said, I would like to go ahead and share my screen with you so I can jump into this presentation and we can get started in talking and discussing about this wonderful and fantastic topic called appreciation. So if you'll just bear with me while I pull this up on the screen and we will get started. And hopefully you can see my actual presentation. Again, welcome to Diversity Week 2020 here at the University of Central Florida. My name is Chantel Carter. I work with the Office of Student Involvement, but I also have the pleasure of wearing another hat as the institutional representative for the ACE Women's Network. And this is actually a presentation that is a part of our ACE Women's Network programming that's taking place for this fall semester. So I welcome you all to the table. Thank you so much for again being here. The title of my presentation is called Appreciation at Work. Is That a Thing? And I came up with the title because I thought it was something that would get people's attention, but I wanted people to really think about the concept and for them to decide whether or not, based on their own experiences, if they really felt as if appreciation was something that was shared with them and with others in this workplace and in this workspace. And I came across a book entitled The Five Languages of Appreciation. It was actually brought to my attention last year, 2019, as I was a part of the planning committee for the SDS Institute. It was decided that this was going to be the book that was going to be given to all of our attendees that came to this particular presentation. And if you attended the presentation, then you received the actual book. So if you came to the Institute last summer, then you received this book and you have it in your possession. And if you haven't had the opportunity to read it, I encourage you to do so. It will change your perspective on appreciation in the best way. So why don't we go ahead and get started? For those of you who are thinking, how in the world could I receive DEU credit from a presentation that talks about appreciation in the workplace? Well, I put this particular slide together so I could have some ODI, DEU cred, right? I wanted to get some credibility. When I went through the different competencies that are available through ODI, I wanted to be intentional about what this presentation could actually address. And so as a part of the foundational pieces of this information, these are the four cultural competencies that I was able to identify that I think really adhere to the messages that our authors in the book are trying to convey. And it helps hopefully you as an individual to understand that, diversity is represented in all the different ways that we differ as human beings. And because we differ, we have different communication styles that is impacted by our cultural backgrounds, our upbringings, where we grew up, and sometimes those communication patterns could potentially lead to misunderstandings and not the best communication to happen between us all. But through an understanding and an insight, you can gain a greater respect and you can have a better understanding of different perspectives that people bring to the table. And you can have a better understanding of how these perspectives actually impact their behavior and also impact the relationship that you may have with them. And then also, hopefully you'll get a chance to practice some of these listening skills as you continue and have conversations about appreciation, that you become a better listener. So that is my goal for this particular presentation today, is to hopefully help you all become better listeners, better communicators, and stronger relationship builders as it comes to appreciation. All right, as I mentioned, the name of the book is called The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace: Empowering Organizations by Encouraging People. And the authors are Gary Chapman and Paul White. And some of you may be familiar with Gary Chapman. He is the author that actually created the Five Love Languages. And I know that that has been a very popular book, a very popular series. So many of you on this webinar today may be familiar with that already. But Gary Chapman decided that since it was so impactful for relationships, could that be something that could be applied in the workplace? Because it's important that relationships are strong and that they exist and have a solid foundation when they're in the workplace. So he decided to partner up with Paul White, and they came up with this fantastic book, again, called The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And they decided that they wanted their thesis, their premise of their book, to be built on this statement. We believe, this is Gary and Paul, we believe that people in the workplace need to feel appreciated in order for them to enjoy their job, to do their best work, and to continue working over the long haul. People need to feel appreciated. And working over the long haul is interpreted for us here at the institution, here at UCF, we define that as meaning retention. So, in order for people to be retained, in order for people to stay, we need to be able to show appreciation to them. So, that really resonated with me. But why is appreciation at work important? Why do you think it's something that is necessary in order for us to be successful? And hopefully, I'm causing you to kind of think about some things right now. Normally, I would try to ask you to chime in, but I know we have a lot of people on the call, so it may be a little difficult to do that. But just be thinking in your mind, why do you think appreciation is something that's important in the workplace? The authors give some great reasons as to why they feel it's important and why it should exist in the workplace. All of us, and I'll repeat, all of us want to feel as if what we do matters. We all want to feel as if what we are contributing to is contributing to a larger goal, a larger benefit to the entire workforce, our teams, our offices, our departments, our university. We don't want to feel as if what we're doing doesn't matter or not valuable. So we all want to feel valuable in the work that we do. And so we need to feel appreciated in what we are doing. And yes, I understand. Money is a big motivator for work. It truly, truly is. And we all know, though, we did not enter into the world of higher education for the money. So there's got to be something else that is the factor that keeps us going and keeps us coming back. And for people who have decided that they are going to stay on their job, or if they're not going to stay on their job, it is tied to whether or not they feel appreciated. And again, money is important and it helps, but whether or not you feel valued, whether or not you feel appreciated, goes into whether or not you will stay with that particular employer. According to some of the statistics that they provide in the book, and this is for my data people, people that need the numbers, I put this in here for you. The authors indicate that from the US Department of Labor, 64% of Americans who decide that they needed to leave their job, decided they wanted to leave their job, noted that they left because they didn't feel appreciated. Not because the money wasn't great, not because the location was terrible, but because they didn't feel appreciated. That was the number one reason they cited for leaving their jobs. And according to 7 hidden reasons why employees leave, 79% of the employees who quit their jobs voluntarily, who left on their own, cited that they didn't feel appreciated. And that was the number one reason, the number one factor for them leaving their particular job. Now that resonates with me. That says a lot because I know a lot of us know a lot of people who have left our institution and who have left other businesses that we are familiar with because they didn't feel valued, because they didn't feel appreciated. And Stephen Covey said it perfectly. And I'm sure a lot of us on this call and on this webinar are familiar with the author Stephen Covey. And in his book entitled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he mentions this statement: next to physical survival in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, next to physical survival, the greatest need of a human being is psychological survival, to be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be appreciated. So, Stephen Covey, this amazing guru, is saying that in order for people to be healthy, to have healthy mindsets, it is imperative for their psychological survival that they feel and be appreciated. That to me is a great motivator for showing appreciation to everyone. Now, his statement does not say it is the greatest need of human beings that we like, that we want to be around, that we want to associate with. His statement says of human beings, everyone, indicating everyone. For everyone's psychological survival, they need to feel appreciated. But we all know appreciation is hard. It's hard to show appreciation. It's challenging. It's difficult. We don't always do it well. We can always do a better job of that. So it's not easy. And if it was, we'd all be doing it perfectly. And I wouldn't be here today to talk about the concept of appreciation and why it's so important. So if it was really easy, there really would be no need to have tools out there to show you how to do it. But it's hard, it's challenging, it's difficult. And it's difficult because sometimes we try to project our own needs and wants and desires and the ways in which we like to be appreciated onto other people. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept, the golden rule, where it says you're going to treat others the way that you want to be treated. So if you want to be respected in a certain way, then you're going to treat people a certain way so that you can receive that same type of respect. But when you think about appreciation, it may be a little difficult to do it that way because not everybody views appreciation the same way. Not everyone has the same appreciation language that you do. You may like to be appreciated a certain way, whether that be through words or gifts, but that may not be the way that your colleague likes to receive appreciation. So it's not necessarily the same as yours. So in this particular situation, the golden rule may not be applicable if the languages are not the same. And let's be honest, it can also be a challenge. It can be difficult When you're having to work with someone that you just don't like, or people that you don't respect, or people that you don't want to be around, it is hard to show appreciation to someone that rubs you the wrong way, that gets on your nerves. It is tough, it is hard, and it may seem impossible. But let's go back to what Stephen Covey said. Human beings need to feel appreciation for their psychological survival. It is necessary that everyone, regardless of how you may feel about them, they all need to feel appreciated as a part of their psychological survival, because we can't change people. We can't change their personalities. We can't change the way in which they do and live their lives. So we have to learn how to accept them for who they are. And we have to figure out a way that we can show our appreciation to them, even if we agree to disagree with them, even if they irritate us and rub us the wrong way. We have to figure out a way, a method to show that we appreciate them, because they need it for their psychological survival. And we need them because they are a part of our teams, they are a part of our offices, our units, our departments, our university, our community. They are contributing in some way. And so we have to figure out how we are going to show appreciation to them so they don't become one of those statistics that end up leaving and they take their valuable skill sets with them. So appreciation is going to be essential, and we are going to be challenged in figuring out how we can actually do that and do it well so that it is received the right way by that individual. So let's go ahead and dive in to um, the concepts of recognition and appreciation, because I know, and I am guilty of this myself, of interchanging these words, exchanging them in and out for each other. But the authors did a really good job of distinguishing the difference between what is recognition and what is appreciation. And now I have a better understanding and a huge respect for both of these words, because now I understand how it is to properly use them in the proper context. So, according to the authors, they say and specify that recognition focuses on what a person does. What are they able to deliver? What can they accomplish? What is their behavior? It's on the actual person of what they do, what that person can do. It's based on their performance. And oftentimes, within a company, within an institution, within an organization, people will provide recognition to others to try to influence and impact the behavior. It is about improving the performance of that person, what they can deliver, how we can check off a goal, what we can accomplish. Is there a metric that we can now meet? What can we recognize and actually share out in regards to our goals? It is about what's good for the business. How can we improve our status as an institution, as a company, as an office, as a unit? What are we focusing on? We're focusing on the what that we are delivering. But when it comes to appreciation, the authors indicate that it should be a focus on the person, who that person is, not necessarily what they're able to do or not do, because we all have our ups and downs. We all have our good days and bad days when we're performing well and when we're not performing as well. But on both of those days, we still need to feel valued and appreciated by those that we work with and the institutions that we work for. So oftentimes, appreciation is necessary in spite of our performance. You may be catching me on a bad day and I'm not performing to par that you know I can, but I'm a little down. So I need a little bit of motivation. I need to feel appreciated. I'm not feeling valued. And that could potentially change the turnaround for that person. They could completely change their perspective and what they're able to do. They may still be struggling, but at least they know that they are valued as they're trying to go through this process and trying to fulfill and meet whatever expectation and goal that has been set for them. So the appreciation aspect affirms the value of that particular person and not have it be based solely on their performance. It's what's good for that particular person, showing appreciation to them on both their good days where they can be recognized for achieving something, as well as their not so good days, because we want to keep them here with us. We want them to stay with us. We want to retain them and keep them as a part of our community. Now let's dive into these different languages that the authors did an amazing job with in their book. And again, if you're familiar with the five love languages, this will sound very familiar to you. The first one is words of affirmation. The second one they discuss is called quality time. The third, acts of service. Fourth, tangible gifts. And fifth is physical touch. And I know for all of my HR people that are on this webinar, hang in there with me. I promise you, the authors did an amazing job of trying to show and facilitate ways that appreciation can truly be done appropriately and legally in the workplace. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit when I go over that particular language of appreciation. But for right now, I'd like to get you all involved just a little bit and by doing this poll. So as you can see the different languages on the screen, I want you to actually select the actual language of appreciation that you feel in the workplace applies specifically to you. And you can just choose one. And I want you to think about it from the perspective of work, because you may feel appreciation in a language that may differ in a different environment. But I want you to think about it from the concept and in the environment of work. What is your preferred language of appreciation at work? And so I'll give you a minute or so to think about that and then select your choice. And hopefully you all can see the poll. All right. So if I can, hopefully, ODI, if you can share with me the results, and hopefully you can all see these as well. Fantastic. So it looks like based on all five options, words of affirmation won with this particular group. It received 72% of the votes for those that were able to vote in this particular poll. Quality time came in second at 23%. So there was a big gap between words of affirmation and quality time. And then acts of service came in third at 20%. And then tangible gifts came in at 5. And no surprise, physical touch came in at 0, which is understandable, especially in today's age. I understand. So that is the layout of what you all have selected. I think that's interesting. I always like to have that poll be a part of the presentation because it gives me an opportunity to kind of see where people are before we actually dive into the different languages of appreciation, to kind of see where people can kind of gauge themselves without having possibly knowing a lot about each of these languages of appreciation. So with that, let's go ahead and start on our discussion on the individual languages of appreciation, starting with words of affirmation first. So, affirmation is trying to convey a positive message. You're communicating a positive message to someone else. So, that means you have to use positive words and positive language to convey your affirmation and your appreciation to them by using this particular appreciation language. And you can praise people for their accomplishments, things that they are able to do. But in order for it to really hit home with them, in order for it to be received well, it needs to be specific. I mean, it's not going to be helpful going around just saying thank you to people. It's going to be helpful to be specific in indicating why you are thanking that particular person. Because if you just go up to someone and just say thank you, they're going to be a little puzzled by what it is you're actually thanking them for. So, whenever you're trying to utilize words of affirmation as a way to show your appreciation to someone who values words of affirmation, they're going to receive it better if they know specifically what it is they are being thanked for and why you're trying to show this appreciation to them. So you could look at their character, how they live their life, and look at that as a way and something to focus on to share words of a positive message of affirmation for them. So if you consider someone to have integrity or someone who is humble or someone you consider to be self-disciplined, you can indicate that in your message. And when you're using these words of affirmation to show that you appreciate them, actually thanking them for that particular character trait. You can also praise people for their personalities, and you want to focus on the positive personality traits, not the negatives. Again, affirmation is a positive message. We all have some negative personality traits that we need to work on. But when you're trying to show appreciation to someone who really values the words of affirmation, you want to make sure that what you're sharing is a positive message. So you can look at the fact that they may be an optimistic person, they may be extremely organized, may be the ones that actually take action when assignments are given rather than just continuing to talk about it. They are your doers as a part of your team. So you can praise people for those personality traits. But again, it should be a positive message that you're trying to convey to them because, again, you want to share with them that you appreciate them, that you value who they are and what they do. And the book gives some really good examples of how to be specific by using your words in a way that will convey that you appreciate what people do. So, for the example of a compassionate person, when they are interacting with people that are frustrating, this person has compassion and they have an opportunity to really show that compassion through the ways that they show that they understand the situation and the circumstances. You can talk about how the fact someone is optimistic all the time, always having a positive perspective on something. So you really admire them for having that perspective. You really admire them for bringing that to the team. You can also share that whenever you enter someone's space, they're extremely organized. I am inspired by people who keep their offices so neat and clean. You can admire them for that specific trait. But again, it's about being specific and letting them know what it is exactly that you are thanking them for, what it is that you are showing your appreciation to them for. And then another final example is that doer, that person that is a part of the team that listens to what needs to be done, and then they decide, okay, we're going to take action now, and I'm going to try to help lead this so we can get this going. So instead of just continuing to talk, they are your doer, and you can show appreciation to someone for having that particular skill set. And again, that's just another example of being specific to show that you appreciate someone by using words of affirmation as the language of appreciation so that they feel valued. Another language that is used by the author that they share is quality time. And I know, we all know and understand that time is a precious commodity. It is something that we never have enough of. We always need more of, and we don't want to waste our time. So we understand that it is a precious resource. So if someone truly values quality time as their language of appreciation, it is important that you show that language well because they understand we don't have a lot of it. So the authors provide some tips on how you can do that effectively and successfully. So whenever you are trying to convey your appreciation to someone who values quality time, You want to make sure that you were giving them your undivided attention. You have to be focused on them in that moment. That moment is not the time to practice and exercise multitasking. And I know that that is something that we value, especially here at the institution, to be able to do multiple things all at once. But again, if you're trying to show appreciation to someone through spending quality time with them, you're going to have to put everything else aside, stop focusing on all of these various things, and focus specifically on them. And then you want to make sure that the time itself is being spent in a qualitative way. I mean, it's got to be a quality conversation. You don't want it to just be a monologue where they themselves feel like they're the only ones talking. It should be a dialogue. It should be a communication. It should be a conversation. And a conversation is an opportunity to exchange ideas and thoughts and personality perspectives and your experiences together. So that all aids into the quality of the conversation by allowing it to actually be a conversation. And you want that space to feel safe and comfortable in order for that particular moment to feel as if it is an appreciation showed by you through quality time spent with them. And you can also spend quality time together through shared experiences. There are things that you have in common with other people that you like to do. And you can spend time with them doing different things that you enjoy doing together. So if you enjoy going to a conference or you realize another colleague is going to a conference, a virtual conference, you can experience that virtual conference together. Or you could do a workshop together, like today with today's webinar. You can spend that time together doing things together. You may decide that you want to spend a virtual lunch hour together or get together virtually for coffee and use that as an opportunity to connect and chat and catch up with each other. But again, it's about being intentional with spending that time together and setting it up so that it can be viewed and seen and received well as a way of showing that you appreciate being with that person and that you appreciate who they are and what they do. You can also break up into smaller groups. Sometimes there are projects or initiatives that need to be accomplished here at the university, which is very common. So you may be able to break up into smaller groups and work on projects together, but you can spend that quality time together, checking in as well as working on the project or the initiative itself. But something to remember about quality time, which I thought was very insightful on the author's part, is understanding and realizing that just because someone may value quality time as their language of appreciation, that may not be what they want from you. They may value quality time with specific people, but not necessarily with everyone, right? So, again, that golden rule doesn't necessarily apply. So, with quality time, it is a personal decision. It is about who you enjoy spending quality time with. That's going to be essential. And if quality time is important to you, please don't assume that other people value spending quality time with you just because you value spending quality time with other people. So that's very important to understand. And they do a great job of explaining that in the book. That was helpful for me because I know I personally enjoy spending quality time with people, but not with everyone. And so that is important for you to understand for yourself as you are trying to manage relationships, as you are trying to manage your existence within your workspaces. It is important for you to have that insight if that is the language that you value in order to feel appreciated in your workplace. So the book and the authors give you permission to not feel as if just because you value quality time, you don't have to value that quality time with everyone. And I thought that was very insightful and helpful. Now, there are some barriers to quality time, and we kind of talked a little bit about that, but the authors also mentioned some barriers that you may have to really intentionally think about. And so when you're thinking about quality time and wanting to convey appreciation to someone through quality time, you have to think about who. Who do you want to spend this quality time with? Is it your coworkers? Is it the coworkers that are closest to you in proximity? Is it your colleagues that may work outside of your office? Is it your supervisor? So you have to decide who is it that you want to spend that quality time with? Because if you're not sure, or if you don't make that known, then it could create some issues and some problems for you. And then you have to figure out, when can you spend this quality time? Again, it is precious. Time is precious to all of us. We all feel as if we could use more time and we can't get it. So we're trying to maximize the time that we've been given. So you have to be intentional about designating specific time to spend with people, if that's the way that you're trying to convey that you appreciate them. So you're going to have to schedule it on your calendar, make it an appointment, that you do a check in with someone so that they understand and can feel the appreciation that you're trying to convey. But it has to happen on purpose. Be intentional. It can't happen by accident. We know that life for all of us exists outside of work, right? And so when we're thinking about this time and when we want to take this time, we have to also be thinking about the time of the day, because we may truly value quality time with our colleagues, with our coworkers, with our supervisor, but only from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It may be a challenge for us to spend quality time with those that we appreciate and want to show appreciation to, if it happens to take place after 5, or if it happens to take place after work, or if it happens to take place on a weekend. That can create a barrier for us. And then if we're trying to show appreciation during those times that are outside our comfort zones, that is not going to feel appreciative. So you have to be looking at when you can actually spend this quality time together. And then where? Where are you going to go? How and when are you going to be able to connect? Where does that physically take place? And that's even more challenging now because we're in the middle of COVID. This pandemic makes it almost impossible for us to get together physically like we've been able to do prior to this past March. So you have to think about where you're going to be able to spend this quality time together, since we're not all in the same physical space. Even now, a lot of us are working remotely. A lot of us are working remotely and sometimes coming into the office. And so we're not even all seeing each other all at the same time. So it makes it even harder to spend quality time together. So you have to think about where you're going to do that. And thankfully, we've got technology that we can rely on, so we can set up some video conferencing. We can set up opportunities for us to connect with everyone, to check in, to chat with people that maybe we haven't seen in a while, for us to still be able to convey our appreciation through the language of quality time. And then you want to think about how. How are we going to spend this time together? I want to convey my appreciation to you by spending some time with you, but I can't force it. And I don't want to do it out of obligation. I don't want you to feel as if I have to be there. I want you to feel as if I want to be there. And you want to make sure you give yourself enough time to convey your appreciation through quality time, because it can't be rushed. And it can't be something that you're trying to check the time every 5 seconds that you're there, because that's not going to convey the level of appreciation that you're trying to convey. Now, you may be limited on time, but you can express that at the beginning of your interaction, or when you're trying to plan or set up this appointment and say, well, I've got a 30-minute break. So we've only got 30 minutes, but I want to spend that 30 minutes with you, getting caught up and seeing what's going on with your life. So you can set up parameters about how you actually want to spend that time together, which is very nice. So now let's go on to the next language of appreciation, and that happens to be acts of service. And so this is all about reaching out, supporting, and providing support, and being willing to serve other people. And as leaders, because all of us are leaders, regardless of our titles, regardless of the letters that come after our name, We are all leaders. And so true leadership is about serving others. We as leaders should be willing to serve and support those that are around us. That is a requirement. There is nothing that we are asking of others that we should not be willing to do ourselves. And we have to keep in mind who we are serving. It is important for us to serve our customers. And for us here at the university, here at UCF, we consider our customers our students, their families, the community that we interact with. Those are our customers. But we must also remember that we are in the business of serving each other, our colleagues, those that we work with. We can't just focus on serving our students and their families and the communities in which we exist. We must also focus on serving our colleagues. So that is going to be essential, especially for those members of our teams that really value acts of service as their language of appreciation. So for someone who really values acts of service, they are saying, don't tell me you care, show me. I need to see it. I need to see the action. You need to show that you care about me. I don't want to hear that you care. I want you to show me that you care. So that's important to someone who truly values acts of service as a way to feel appreciated. And here's a common scenario that comes from the book. And I think this one was a really good example because I believe truly that it will resonate with all of us in some degree. And I will read this. Normally, I would ask someone to read it, but I'm going to read this to you because I think it's going to sound very familiar to you. You have a major project to complete with the deadline closing in. And through external circumstances no one could have predicted, you are behind and are working long hours to get the task done. This sounds very familiar to me, and I'm sure it does to you. If no one comes alongside to help and ask, is there something I can do to help? And you are left to struggle on your own. This can be extremely, and I'll repeat, extremely discouraging to those who value acts of service as an act of support and affirmation for who they are as a person. But here's the shining light. But when a colleague or a supervisor assists in getting the task done, wow, it can be extremely encouraging and it creates a sense of camaraderie to the staff as a whole. Now, notice this person was not seeking or looking for recognition, right? Apparently, it's a tough day today and they're struggling a bit, but they need to feel affirmation. They need to feel appreciated. They need to feel valued. And the way in which this person feels appreciated is when someone stops to say, hey, how can I help you today? What can I do to support you in what you are doing? This is what's important to people who value acts of service. And the authors give advice on how you can actually serve others effectively. So, if you want to do it well and you want it to be received well, then you need to make sure that if you are offering up your help and your assistance to someone else, make sure it is not going to be detrimental to the work that you yourself are responsible for. We're all being paid to do a job, right? We're all being paid to accomplish certain goals, aspects, metrics, all of these things. We have things that we have to aspire to in our roles and that we're responsible for. So, in our offering to help others, we have to make sure it's not going to be detrimental or negatively impact the work that we are responsible for doing. And when you are willing and you're wanting to offer your help and assistance to someone, make sure you ask them first. Make sure you ask that person if they need help and make sure you ask before you jump in because they may not necessarily want the help from you. They may want help, but they may not want your help, or you may not be able to bring the type of assistance that they need for that particular job or project. So always ask before you just jump in. And then don't assume you know exactly what they may need. Even though you think you may know, you may be wrong. It may look a certain way to you. You have your own perspective of how you view that particular circumstance and situation, but don't assume that you know what they need in that moment. Let them tell you what it is that they want your help with. And if you're going to help them, do it the way they want you to help. Don't do it your way. In that moment, they just need to accomplish the task and they want you to jump in and do it the way that they describe it to you to do. Don't try to do it your way, and don't take that opportunity as an educational moment on how to do it better. Don't do it. Just do it the way that they ask you to do it. And then later, when you have the opportunity to spend some quality time over coffee or over lunch, or you're just taking a break together virtually, then you can revisit the situation and say, remember when I was assisting you on that particular project? Let me share with you the way I usually approach that process because it really works for me. I'm not sure if it'll work for you, but at least let me share with you what that is because maybe that could help you in the future. That would be the time to share the way in which you do it, but not in that moment because it's not going to be received well. So take advantage of the opportunity to serve, but make sure you're doing it in the right way according to the person that values the help and that needs the help and assistance at that time. And when you're going to help someone, when you're going to assist someone, make sure you do it because you want to do it. We don't always respond well when we're voluntold to do something or when we're receiving help because somebody else was voluntold to assist us. Because usually you can pick up on it in your attitude and in your body language. So just make sure if you're really trying to convey appreciation to someone by showing support, by offering assistance, make sure it's done voluntarily and in the right mindset and the right attitude because you will be able to tell those that are genuinely trying to help you versus those that are not but have been told to do so. There is a difference. And then you want to make sure that you complete what you start. If you're going to offer your assistance to someone, make sure you complete what it is that you are saying that you can provide to them. If you only have a limited amount of time or if you only have a limited amount of resources that you can share and assist, make sure you convey that at the beginning before you start. So that way the expectations are clear. If you only have 15 minutes, let them know I've only got 15 minutes. What can I do in this 15 minutes of time? That way there's a start and an end time. So that way you're not leaving them hanging and probably in a worse place than when you started initially to help them. So make sure you complete what you start and what you're going to assist them with. All right. Hopefully you all are still with me. Hang in there. Next, we've got tangible gifts. These are the things that you can actually touch, right? These are the things and experiences that people have a tendency to enjoy, they love, they're interested in it, they're passionate about it. It's what makes them feel special, what makes them feel appreciated, but you won't know exactly what that is unless you're actually engaging in conversation with your colleagues. That means you're going to have to talk to each other to see if that's something that someone values as a language of appreciation. Would they want to receive a gift? And if so, what type of gift would they appreciate receiving? So, for example, if someone enjoys coffee, for all the coffee drinkers on this particular webinar, if you like to go to either Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, and I know there's a thing between the two, but if you have a preference and you know that about your colleague, in order for you to truly show your appreciation to them, you could even go so far as to specifically purchase a gift card for that particular restaurant or that location. And that makes it personal to them. You want to make sure the gift is personal. Technically, yes, you could maybe just buy a generic gift card for them to get whatever they want. But if you know they absolutely love coffee, or they absolutely love a certain store, or they absolutely love a certain thing, and you give them that thing, that will be more impactful than just giving them something that is generic or general. So you want to make the gift meaningful to that particular person. You want it to be personal to them, because then it will really be viewed and received as a way of you showing appreciation to that person. But I know all of us have been on the receiving end on some very bad gifts. And the book has some very interesting examples that I have pulled to share with you today. You know, giving people things that they don't need and or don't like is not a way for them to feel appreciated. If you give a box of candy to someone who can't have it, that is not going to go over well. They're not going to receive that well. But as a personal note, if you're wanting to give chocolate to me to show your appreciation, I will gladly accept. I just want to put that out there. But not everybody is like me. Not everybody would receive that well. Not everybody can have chocolate, right? So you got to make sure you have some conversations to find out what exactly do people like when it comes to these gifts, these tangible gifts, what would go over well. Here at the university, we spend a lot of time and emphasis on our marketing and our marketing campaigns. We purchase promotional items that have marketing materials and our logo imprinted on them. But because of trends, we sometimes have to change our marketing campaign. So we're oftentimes left with leftover marketing materials. And so you then are stuck with trying to figure out, what's the best way for us to give these out? Like, how can we distribute these so that they don't go to waste? You've got to be really careful about the message that you're going to convey if you're deciding to provide those out for people to take. You can't try to package it as if this is something that was purchased for them to show your appreciation to them, because more than likely they already received that promo item. So you just have to be really careful about how you make it available and what is the message that you convey when you make it available to them, letting them know. And I think being honest and letting people know, we just recently changed our marketing campaign. We have all this left over. Feel free to take whatever you like. That message is much well received versus look what we purchased for you and now we want you to have it, because that is not the truth. So being honest with people and letting them know what's going on, I think will take you a long way. One of the examples, the bad examples that really got my attention was that photocopied note to say that you appreciate someone. This was actually an example that was tied to a health facility that was trying to show appreciation to its nursing staff. I mean, think about what all our nurses are doing across our country right now in the middle of this pandemic, and to try to show appreciation to a team of people that are trying to keep people alive by printing out photocopied notes that say we appreciate you and slapping on there a mint doesn't quite convey the level of appreciation that you really are truly wanting to convey. And for those of us that are familiar with copy machines, those first few couple of prints look really crisp, really clean, right? Everything is straight. But eventually, after a while, you get toward the bottom of that stack, the picture kind of gets a little shifted, the ink's not as clear. And so if you're on the receiving end of one of those that came out toward the end, you're not going to feel too good about something that's kind of shifted and a little blotchy with the ink. That's not really going to convey the type of appreciation that you really want to feel, and it's not going to land well with your employees. So really, it's important to make sure that when you are trying to utilize gifts as a way to show that you appreciate someone, that you do it in a way that it will be received well by the recipient. Again, it's not about what you like in regards to receiving gifts. It's about what the recipient likes and wants to receive as a gift that will resonate with them. All right. Next up, we have the very last language of appreciation. And I know people have been on edge ever since I mentioned it in that beginning slide, but trust me, the authors were very respectful of the fact that physical touch is very taboo, and it can be very dangerous, and it can be very controversial. But there are a limited number of ways that physical touch is conveyed in the workplace, and it could potentially be appropriate depending on the parties that are involved. There are limited situations where involving physical touch is okay. Where, for example, if you're giving someone a high five, that is very, very common that you see in the workplace. Handshakes is something that is very common and sometimes expected depending on the environment and the people that are involved in that particular exchange. Sometimes a pat on the back, depending on the type of relationship you may have with that person. A hug, if you're a hugger and the other person is a hugger, that could be appropriate. Maybe a fist bump or a fist elbow. And I know physical touch right now is almost next to impossible because of what's going on with COVID. But a lot of these things are still happening electronically. So on, live Zoom calls or webinars, or even on Microsoft Teams or things like that, you see people giving virtual high fives, or they're clapping, doing that little clapping symbol. So those are still ways that physical touch can be conveyed, but it's done appropriately in the workplace. And I know I put on here, etc., after elbow bump, but really there's nothing left. Like, that's it. I was trying to be optimistic, but there's really not much more you can add to the list that would potentially be acceptable in the workplace. But the key to physical touch in any circumstances is that the recipient is always the authority on what is acceptable. And they really stress this in the book. The person on the receiving end dictates whether or not that is a language that they want to have shared with them as a way to feel appreciated. So it is very important that if physical touch is a way in which you feel appreciation, you cannot assume that everyone is the same way and try to do that with everyone to show that you appreciate them. If you are a hugger and other people are not a hugger, do not try to hug them, because that is not going to go over well and it could get you in trouble. So make sure you understand what the languages are of those that you work with. So, see, they did a good job. The authors did a good job in addressing that particular language of appreciation. But as I mentioned, working remotely is essential in the life that we're in right now with COVID and everything that's going on, for health wise, for safety wise. We have to work remotely, or we have to do it in a way where we are socially distancing ourselves. But in order to work remotely successfully, we have to be focusing on the relationships, those that we had with people and individual prior to the necessary need for us to work remotely, and the ones that we may need to develop now because we are working remotely and are now having a new dependence on other areas for support and assistance. So working remotely is about focusing on the relationships that you have with your colleagues, your coworkers, and the surrounding community. And I love relationships and relationship building. I think that is key in making sure that your environment is successful. When you have strong relationships, there's not a lot that you can't do. There's not a lot that you can't accomplish. And so the book goes over some remote work observations that they have indicated. And they have shared that relationships are built upon relating with other people. And we know that there are different types and categories of relationships that we have. We have relationships that we convey and conduct with our colleagues. We have those that we consider friends, and then maybe even very, very close friends, and then also family members. So there are different types of relationships, and there are different levels of relationships that can occur within the work environment. But to truly appreciate someone, you must have a relationship. There must be an existence of a connection there. And again, we're not talking about recognition. We are talking about displaying and showing appreciation. It is about a personal connection. It is about that particular person. Now, you can definitely admire and respect people from afar, right? You can admire a particular actor or a particular author of a book. You can respect them wholeheartedly, but can you really convey appreciation to that particular person if you don't have a relationship with them? If you don't know the ways in which they value and feel appreciated, which of their languages is what they would like to receive when it comes to appreciation? It's hard to do that when you don't have a relationship with someone. So hopefully that's a motivator for you to have relationships with those that you work with, to have some form of connection with these people so you can understand what is it, what language do they need for their psychological survival to feel appreciated. And then appreciation flows from valuing each other. That's just how it works. So we can truly appreciate anyone regardless of how we may feel about them. Because again, everyone needs to feel appreciated for their psychological survival. It is essential for everyone to feel some level of appreciation. Here are some guiding principles that the authors also share from the book. Communicating appreciation virtually can happen successfully. It is very, very possible. But in order for it to feel authentic, you have to have that relationship. If you want it to be received well, there has to be some form of connection. Because if you try to show appreciation to someone in one of the various languages and it's not something that they appreciate, it could truly backfire. It could be a negative experience and it could be detrimental to whatever relationship you have or the relationship that you're trying to develop with that person. So it must be authentic. It must be one based on information and an exchange of ideas and a sharing of yourself with somebody else. And the more specific the appreciation is, the more impactful it will be for that person. So make sure it is specific enough so that they know it is truly about them as an individual person. So they will feel valued and appreciated. There are some practical steps that the authors provide when you're looking at each of these five languages in order to truly show appreciation, regardless of which language you're trying to utilize. So, if you're looking at words of affirmation, it is possible to show your appreciation to others in the middle of a pandemic while you're working remotely by using positive language, by using words. And we're all probably already doing that through our emails, through our text. But let me just point out something, and this is my personal sentiments. I really truly believe there is power in being able to pick up the phone and call someone or to schedule a Zoom or a Skype meeting so you can actually see someone. There is power in being able to hear someone's voice. There is power in being able to possibly seeing somebody as you're trying to communicate with them. Yes, you can communicate a positive message in an email. Yes, you can communicate a positive message in a text, but it goes over so much better. It is so much better if it can be done face to face remotely if possible. So if you can call someone and share your appreciation to them, that is can be received so much better than just sending them a text or an email. Now, I understand you may be limited. You may not have the option of the phone, or you may not have the option of the Zoom or the Skype. So you want to utilize what you can. But there are various degrees, I think, in ways in which to show appreciation to someone by using words of affirmation. And then again, it's quality time. You got to be intentional. You got to schedule that time on purpose and give them your undivided attention, not the time to multitask. And then acts of service, offering to assist with a project. You can do that remotely, you can do that virtually. That can happen easily. We do that all the time. We've been made to have to do that. Oftentimes, we can't get together to support each other, so we have to do it virtually. And then tangible gifts. If you know someone likes something specific, you could send them something specific and that would go over very, very well with them. So just begin thinking about the specifics of those gifts. What is it that they like? What is it that they like to experience? What is it that they like to consume or eat? And maybe you can share that as a way to show your appreciation to that person. And then with physical touch, I know, but again, we've already been doing that on multiple Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams interactions with these virtual high fives, the fist bumps, the virtual clapping. That is still a way to show your physical touch of appreciation to someone virtually. So it is possible. You can do it successfully, even within a remote work experience. You just have to be creative. You just have to be really creative about how you want to do that in a remote setting. And we all have been forced to think like that as of late. So it is possible for all of us to be able to do this. So, working successfully remotely, again, you got to remember that you have to be proactive, you have to be intentional because you're not going to have that chance to just run into someone in the elevator or as you're going up and down the stairs or as you're jetting across campus to try to get to a meeting. More than likely, that's not happening nowadays because of the requirements with COVID. So you have to be intentional and you have to be proactive about spending that time together and also being able to convey that appreciation to people because accidental interactions aren't going to happen as much. So no more brief in person chance encounters. You really must be intentional about setting that up. And showing appreciation is not an option. It is something that we must do, or we risk the chance of losing good people. And I know at this institution, we have done that. We have lost some good people. And so we have to take appreciation as a very serious asset that we must adopt and utilize every day, all day long. Every single employee at the university needs to feel appreciated, and we have to figure out how exactly do we do that. And the authors give us some guidelines with these five languages and figuring out how does that apply to different people. But that's going to mean we have to have conversations with each other. We have to be willing to talk to each other. We have to have dialogues and exchange ideas and thoughts and passions and interests with each other so that way we can know the ways in which we feel appreciated. It is essential to the work that we do. It is essential to us being able to be successful in achieving all of the goals that are necessary in order for us to stay in business and to keep employed. We have to be able to show appreciation to each other. So, now what I'd like for you to do in thinking about all of these five languages that I've had the opportunity to share insight to you from the authors of this book, like you did at the beginning, you did a poll where you could see all five of these languages of appreciation. Now I'd like for you to take the poll again just to see if there really has been a difference in your perspective on how you personally see words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and physical touch as your personal preference for the workplace. What is your preferred language of appreciation at work now that you've had the opportunity to get a little bit more insight on these five languages if you didn't know them before? I'm going to give you a moment to take that poll again. Okay. Hopefully, you've had an opportunity to select your preferred language of appreciation. And if ODI will share that with us so we can see. Okay, very interesting. So there has been some slight movement, a little bit, based on everyone that has filled it out this time in comparison to those that filled it out at the beginning of the presentation. So words of affirmation is still reigning as the most selected with 63%. But acts of service is now coming in second place at 33%, and quality time is coming in at 18%. Tangible gifts coming in at 7, and physical touch is still in the rear, which is not surprising, at 0%. So it's just interesting to kind of see. And I'd like for you to kind of think if you changed your selection from the beginning to now, after now having a little bit more insight as to what each of these languages of appreciation actually mean and how they can apply to the workplace, if you actually had a change in how you perceive them and your preference. So I just wanted to give you something to kind of think about. Now, this is a group discussion exercise. And normally, if I would give this presentation in a smaller group, I would break you up into breakout rooms and we'd have some small group discussions. But I didn't want to take it out of the presentation because I think it's a really valuable exercise for you to be able to take back and share with your colleagues, your units, your departments, your offices as a group exercise, as a group discussion to really think about these five languages of appreciation and think about when there was a time when you felt appreciated at work. And so it allows you to pause and actually think about a specific scenario, situation where you felt valued at your place of employment. And for some people, that is a difficult task and it may take them a little while. But I think it's a great exercise to get the conversation going about appreciation in the workplace and specifically which of these languages of appreciation is applicable and preferred by individual people. So when the discussion takes place about that particular example, they go into and talk about what was the appreciation shown for, when did this appreciation take place, who were the people involved in showing this appreciation, and what location did it take place, and how was it delivered, how was it shown to that particular person or group of people. And then most importantly, like I said, is figuring out for that particular example which of those languages of appreciation applies and is specific to that example, and how was it received by you, and does that really fall within your preferred language of appreciation, and could you appreciate the appreciation that was shown and attempted. So it always provides a great opportunity for people to have some really good in-depth discussions with those that are a part of their team that they may not typically discuss on a regular basis. So I encourage you to take maybe a screenshot of this particular slide and just go back and have this discussion with your team and just see where the conversation leads you. But at least you'll be talking about appreciation and what that looks like for you as an individual, as well as for your unit, your department, or your team. So now you're probably thinking, okay, Chantel, you've talked to us all this time. You've shared with us about what the authors wanted to convey concerning languages of appreciation. There are five of them. So now what are we supposed to do? What are these next action steps that you were expecting of us? Well, the first one is to read the book. If at all possible, if you can get your hands on the book, even if it's electronic version of it, I strongly encourage you to read the book. The book is amazing. It is phenomenal. It is really insightful and gives you really good insight as to what appreciation truly is and how it can look and be successful in the workplace. So if you have the opportunity to read it, share it with those that don't have it. It's a great book club book to read. It's a great small group discussion book to read. It's a great book to read as a team, but it is really insightful and they do a great job of explaining appreciation in the workplace. You can also take an inventory. They call it their motivating by appreciation inventory. It's an assessment for you to figure out what is your preferred language of appreciation. You may have been guessing when you were taking the polls, but you can actually take an inventory and based on how you answer questions, they can identify through this inventory what is your preferred language of appreciation at work. So it identifies your number one and your number two. But also, what's even more impactful is it also gives you the language that you least prefer. And that is sometimes extremely helpful to know. What language of appreciation do I not like when it comes to appreciation, which is nice. But just a little insider scoop with the MBA inventory, it only allows you to rate yourself on the first four. So physical touch is not even an option in the inventory itself. So it is interesting though, but when you take it, you'll get a chance to see what are your preferences, and that could help you with these conversations and dialogues that you're having with your teams, and it can also help in the building and the maintenance of relationships that you have with those that you work with. You can also create some intentional conversations in your areas. And again, I hope you take that group exercise with you and share that with your teams. But we need to be talking about appreciation and what does that truly look like. And again, understanding the difference between recognition and appreciation. So we need to have conversations and they're not going to happen by accident. So we have to be intentional about having these conversations in our workspace, especially if we are wanting to retain our people. People need to feel appreciated. And you're just going to start somewhere with someone. It doesn't have to be strategic. It doesn't have to be something that you spend months trying to plan. Just pick someone and just start a conversation with them about it. You might be surprised what you find out, because we all have a role to play in increasing the amount of appreciation that is felt in this place that we call UCF. And we can do it. We can do it. I believe in us. This is something that we can accomplish. And so I need people to join me on this journey. And I'm hoping it can be you. But as a person that has participated in this workshop, you are now considered an appreciation ambassador. You have joined my team called Appreciation Ambassadors. So I need all of you to go out and share this information with others so they too can become appreciation ambassadors, so that we can make sure that everyone that is here feels as if they belong here, they are valued and appreciated. Now, there are some additional resources that I want to share with you. As I mentioned, they do have available, the authors, the NBA inventory, but they also have a listserv that you can join, and they will send you information periodically about how these languages of appreciation are being applied in the actual workplace. There's also a website, appreciationatwork.com, that will give you great insight as to what these languages are and provide you access to additional resources pertaining, and will help you in your journey to be able to show appreciation effectively in the workplace. They also have a blog for those bloggers that are on the webinar. If you're interested in that, you can join their blog. They also recommend some books that have been written by the author, and also possibly in conjunction with some other authors. So The Vibrant Workplace is by Dr. Paul White. Rising Above a Toxic Workplace by both Gary Chapman and Paul White, who wrote The Five Languages of Appreciation, but they did it in partnership with Harold Myra. These are two books that I'm hoping I will be able to have on my book list and eventually be able to get to and read. But then also, you all are resources for each other now. You all have been equipped with this information. You have access to this information. You now are equipped to go out and hopefully do a better job of showing appreciation to each other, because it is so essential to the success of the work that we've all been called to do here at UCF. And with that, I will end this presentation. Again, thank you all so much for joining me today and being willing to become appreciation ambassadors. I am so grateful that you again took the time to spend the time with me. And now I will open it up to any questions. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will open up for any questions you may have or comments.
Hello, Chantal. This is Kavita. We
Hey.
have a question in the chat from an anonymous attendee.
Okay.
Can a person have an unhealthy need for words of affirmation?
I think you can have an unhealthy need for anything. So I think that it is very possible. I think you may have to solicit some help and support in maybe trying to figure out why you may think it's unhealthy, or why there is such a high degree of need for words of affirmation. There may be some other areas in your life that may need attention. And so you may need to seek professional help. You may need to have some conversations with family members, because there may be some other underlining factors that are present as a part of your life that's causing what you are saying is an unhealthy need for words of affirmation. But I think it is possible. I think it is possible, but I think it may be contributed to some other factors that may be impacting your life.
Thank you for that. Now, Andrea Berry said, it's funny because I like to give people a pat on the back or a hug when appropriate, but I think I like words of affirmation as my preferred language. I guess that means we could have multiple preferences.
Yes, and depending, I think, on the environment that you're in, your language will probably shift slightly. Like, for example, you may want to be appreciated within your unit or your department a certain way, but you may have a group of colleagues that you affiliate with at work, but are not a part of your official work team, that you want to be shown appreciation by them in a different language. So it is very possible to have multiple variations of languages that you prefer based on the setting and the environment that you're in. And they explain that a little bit in the book, especially when talking about that inventory, because what's nice is that they give you your first two preferences, right? Based on how you answer your questions in the actual assessment. But though your answers may differ too, depending on the actual environment that you're thinking about at that particular moment. So I do believe it is possible to have preferences that vary, but it will be more prominent with one versus another, I think, depending on the environment that you're in and the people that you're interacting with. Because again, it's about you feeling appreciated by that person. And so we feel differently about different people. And so that could impact how you want to be appreciated by that person.
Okay, there is an anonymous attendee that would like you to please repeat the name of the book, or the book title, sorry.
Okay, it's called The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace: Empowering Organizations by Encouraging People. And the authors are Gary Chapman and Paul White.
Okay, and then Lillian McMahon has a question. She has her hand up. So I'm going to unmute her, Lillian, if you're ready. I'm going to unmute you so that you can ask your question. Lillian?
Hello, Lillian. Are you there? Hello? Well, if you're not able to speak, you're welcome to add your question to the Q&A, and we'll try to get to it for you.
All right, there is another question in the chat. Is there a trend between introverts and extroverts and the appreciation languages?
I have to say, I appreciate this particular question because it may be surprising for some people, but I am naturally an introvert, but I am a functioning extrovert when it comes to work. So I don't know, I don't remember if the authors actually mentioned, and I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think there may be a section. I'm actually looking at the book now, but I think there may be a section that talks about that, or maybe I read it on their website. But I do believe they have some pointers about how the languages impact you if you are an introvert versus an extrovert. But I think it also is dependent upon how you present yourself at work. So hopefully that helps. I'm sorry, and I can't quite remember exactly what the authors has to say, but I think I remember reading something about that either in the book or on their website. So I apologize for not being able to give a little bit more thorough answer. But I think it would be kind of dependent upon how you present yourself at work.
Thank you. And Takara Jordan has her hand up. So I'm going to, Takara, if you're ready, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Kavita. Hi, Chantel.
Hi, Takara.
Hey, quick question
Hey.
for you.
Uh-huh.
So, if your languages of love is words of affirmation
Mm-hmm.
and acts of service, how do you convey that to your leadership as well as your coworkers? Because sometimes you don't want to come out and say, tell me thank you. Give me those
Mm-hmm.
words of affirmation. You want to know that they know to say thank you, but some people that's just not something that they're aware of, or it may not be a part of their leadership style or
Mm-hmm.
how they communicate with others. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some ways that you can communicate what you like as an employee to others so that way they understand?
I think that question actually hits home to the concept of relationships and the relationship building piece. I think being able to have some level, some degree of relationship with those that you work with, provides opportunities for you to engage in conversations that you probably wouldn't necessarily have with just those that you connect or have to work with, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's about having a relationship with your supervisor and being able and having an environment that feels safe enough for you to share what you need to be successful in the work that you're being asked to do. And hopefully, as a supervisor, you are wanting and are seeking that information for those that you work with and support and lead, so that way you can be an effective leader in getting them to do what they need to do, especially considering you're asking them to do a lot of things, right? So I think it is
Mhm.
important that supervisors truly seek out that type of information for for those that they supervise, so they can use that as a retainment tool, because we know people who are not happy, who are not valued, who are not feeling appreciated on the job, more than likely will not stay if they are given an opportunity to leave. So, as a supervisor, I would think that you would value retention. So, even if you struggle with your team, you should feel as if appreciation showing is an important skill that you have as a supervisor, and that in order to do it right, you need to have a type of relationship, an ability to communicate with your team to find out what works for them. Because again, it's not necessarily about the recognition piece. It's about showing appreciation to your team. So I think people have to talk to each other. We're not mind readers. We can't, that would be a perfect, an amazing superpower to have, but none of us can read each other's minds. So we have to have conversations with each other so that we can share what this appreciation thing looks like for us and figure out ways how to convey that. And it's going to take some practice. It's not an easy conversation that you can just strike up, because you may not have that type of relationship, but you have to start the conversation, I think, to engage and figure out what is it that is necessary for you to feel appreciated, that's realistic for me as a supervisor to show to you that I appreciate who you are as a person. So I think it has to start with that communication piece to build the relationship. I hope that answers your question, Takara.
It does. It does.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
That is all the questions we have in the chat, and there are no more raised hands.
All right, well, fantastic. Thank you all so much again for joining me today. I am so appreciative, and that is not a pun. I really mean that. Thank you. Thank you. I am grateful that you spent this time with me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of this week. If you do have any other questions that you didn't want to ask on this particular webinar, feel free to reach out to me. My email was listed on that last slide. It's chantel.carter@ucf.edu. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I would love to continue this conversation and this dialogue with you. So again, thank you very much, and best wishes to you all. Have a good one.
We just had one more raised hand.
Oh,
It
okay.
is Dr. Butler.
Ah,
You're
hello,
good,
Dr.
Dr. B.
Butler.
I don't have anything to say. I was just going to say that, I appreciate you stopping early, but weren't you supposed to go till 12?
No, it was from 10 to 11:30.
Ah, shoot. I'm just messing with you anyway.
Oh,
So,
okay.
well, thank you for being a part of this today. And thank you for always coming through for us on anything that we ask of you. And so I just wanted to just say, hey, and appreciate you just because of it. And so that's my words of affirmation to you today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Butler. I appreciate the appreciation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
You have a phenomenal day.
You as well. Thank you, everyone. Best wishes to you. We can do this.